since that time, we have been studying all sorts of aspects to do with conversion. And we've also discovered just how, well, I think we knew it before we actually set up the center, we've discovered just how complex conversion is as a subject or a topic, but conversion has allowed us to enter into many, many different areas of thought and comparative work, and it looks like this conference is going to be another exciting intellectual feast. I'd like to welcome everyone, as I said, I'd like to welcome everyone who has come. For those of you who have been at our conferences before, and for those of you who haven't, we tend to like to work hard, but also to enjoy ourselves, and I hope that the coming days will be one of fascinating papers and great conversation, and we've organized the sessions in a way that allow us to enjoy the papers, but then have a good discussion following that, and I hope that over the course of the next few days everyone will get to know everyone else. You will also have noted that on the third day of the conference we take a break. Well, it's not really a break, but we have an excursion, and this year we will be going to Jerusalem, and we were supposed to be going to Jerusalem, by the way, last year, but we were trumped by Trump. President Trump decided to arrive in Israel on the day that we were intending to go on our trip to Jerusalem, and for obvious reasons we had to change our plans. Thank goodness that doesn't look like happening this time. So we look forward to going to Jerusalem, where our guide will be a research fellow of the center, Moshe Agur, who I see is not here yet, but it's an opportunity to also congratulate him on receiving his doctorate. It's now Dr. Moshe Agur, both an incredible tour guide and an incredible scholar. This is also an opportunity for me to thank the members of the board of the center, who are also the organizing committee of this conference. So to Ram Ben Shalom, Nimrod Horowitz, Effie Shoham, and Dov Claude Stoshinsky. I hope you'll meet them all during the course of the conference, but especially to Ora Limor, who is sitting here to my right, who has become incredibly important to all of us, both as a member of the board, but also for all her activities beyond. We're now in the process of completing an online course, what's referred to often as MOOCs, right? One of these massive online, whatever courses. Yeah, I've forgotten directed by Sarina, who is sitting in the corner there, on Sarina Chen, on conversion. And without Ora, I don't think we would be, without Ora helping and aiding us, I'm not sure we'd be where we'd be. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you in all of our names, for all your hard work. This is also an opportunity to thank Bat El. I'm sure you've all had contact with Bat El over the past few months. Bat El has been the administrator of the center for the last 5 years, and again, without her, I think much of our activity and the things that we do would be impossible to accomplish. So Bat El, thank you. And I'm taking this opportunity to thank Bat El and everyone else because sadly, or perhaps not so sadly, I don't know, depending on your perspective, we're reaching the end of our 5 years of funding. The I-Corps was set up with and funded fully for 5 years, and I said we were established in May 2013, and we will basically be coming to the end of our grant now, but we've lengthened it till September. So basically in September, we come to the end of our official funding. This university, when we started out, was rather puzzled about what we intended to do. They didn't think, or it didn't occur to them that scholars in the humanities could actually cooperate and work together on topics in a similar way to scientists in their laboratories. But our first conversion, I think, was, or our first and only, I think, successful conversion, was the administration of the university, and who realized that this center was a great contribution to the international profile of the university. And at the end of the day, that's what's important for a university. And the university has decided to fund us for a further 4 years. But it will mean some changes in the way we go about things, because the largesse is not as nice as what we were used to. But we will adjust, and we'll be continuing our work for at least the next 4 years. And if any of you here know someone who wishes to have a center named after them, dealing with the study of conversion and interreligious encounters, I'll tell you the price in private. And you are most welcome to send them in my direction. We're looking for donors, actively looking for donors. I think, to sum up, our achievements over the last 5 years have been impressive. I think we have become, our center has become well known, not only in Israel and abroad, and I think evidence of this is that our call for papers for this conference was well over. We received tens of applications, and sadly we were unable to bring everyone. I'm delighted to see everyone here, and I look forward, as I said, to 4 days of exciting and stimulating papers, conversation, food, because we take food very seriously in this in the center. And let's go. Let's start. Thank you very much. By the way, there's still room around the table for those of you who wish to join the circle. There's still a couple of empty places. Please feel free to come to the table.
Good morning. I'd also like to thank the organizer who didn't thank himself. I'm Daniel J. Lasker. I've been here from the beginning. I'm also a member of the board, but not the people who actually do any work. Some of you may remember, those of you who were here at the first conference, that I was honored to be asked to chair that session. And I began the session with a joke, and then every subsequent session, people felt that they were obligated to tell jokes. Don't feel that you're obligated.
מפחד.
All right, we'll try again. It's too loud. In any event, because of the fact that over the years, quite a number of people, not only I, have begun with jokes, my repertoire of jokes sort of ran out. So I was forced to go to the source of all knowledge, namely the internet. And I found a few there when I sort of reworked. So start with the priest, imam, and rabbi who were decided to see which was the best converter who teaches religion. They decided that the job would be, their task would be to convert a bear. So they went into the forest. Sometime afterwards, they come out. The priest reports he was very successful. He had already baptized the bear, and the bear would have first communion the next week. And the imam came back. He said, very good. He got the bear to pronounce the Shahada, and that he soon would be able to pray the 5 times a day. And the rabbi was lying there on a stretcher in bandages. And they said, what happened? He said, well, I probably did it wrong, but I started with circumcision. This session will be devoted to conversion and construction of identity. The first speaker is Dr. Einat Liebel-Haas, who's an anthropologist and historian. Her PhD dissertation topic is the development of liberal reform and conservative Judaism in Tel Aviv, organizational patterns and identities, which won the Cherkin Award for outstanding doctoral thesis. Dr. Liebel-Haas is a lecturer at Ashkelon Academic College in Israel. Her academic interests include cultural dynamics between Israel and the U.S., liberal Judaism, and congregational studies. And her topic for today is a matter of conversion, reform Jewish conversion in Israel as a process of constructing identity and belonging. The
presentation addressed reform Jewish conversion in Israel through the eyes of female immigrant converts. While Orthodox conversion encourages converts to conduct a religious way of life, its reform counterpart urges them to define their own personal connection and obligation to Jewish tradition. The State of Israel gave the Orthodox establishment monopoly on conducted conversions. However, it currently recognizes reform conversion for the purpose of being registered as a Jew in the population registry. In other words, this kind of conversion is considered legal by the state, but is not recognized by the Orthodox establishment. The literature sees conversion in Israel as a naturalization process, as well as a change of religion and identity. The data presented is part of an ethnographic field study that I have conducted for my doctoral dissertation in Beit Daniel, a Reform congregation located in Tel Aviv, the cultural center of Israel. 100 people convert to Judaism at Beit Daniel each year. 95% of them are women who immigrated to Israel from the former Soviet Union, Europe, and the Philippines. And in the picture you can see Beit Daniel, the entrance of it. Using Victor Turner's terminology, one can say that every kind of conversion is a liminal period. In this presentation, I will compare the liminality of the Jewish identity of women who completed a Reform conversion course. The women belong to 2 groups: Russian-speaking non-Jewish immigrants and former foreign workers from the Philippines. For this purpose, I will analyze the identity and belonging perceptions of women who completed the conversion studies at Beit Daniel, as well as their partners. Ostensibly, such women are considered to be socially marginalized and have a liminal identity because one characteristic of their identity pushed them to the margins of society. For women from the former Soviet Union, their characteristic is their patrilineal Jewish descent, since the father is Jewish while the mother is not. They are considered to be Jewish according to Jewish law. For Filipino women, it is their being Asian and the initial circumstances of their arrival to Israel as foreign workers. Just one moment. I will contend that compared to the Russian-speaking women, whose origin and look is European, the Filipino women face heightened liminality during and following the conversion course because of their race, so their transitory liminal state become permanent. In addition, I would argue that the decision to become congregation members at the end of the conversion process is more of a group decision than an individual one. Evidence in support of this argument is the Filipinos and their husbands who formed a group of friends that encouraged them to stay in the congregation. To date, only one researcher by the name of Dvora Skortovskia has examined the ideological differences between Orthodoxy and Reform conversion, while Skortovskia focused solely on Russian-speaking converts. I will examine Filipino and their foreigners. And now to the former Soviet Union-born women converts. These converts are part of the non-Jewish population who immigrated to Israel from the former Soviet Union, primarily during the 1990s, estimated at 300,000 people. Having lived in Israel for 2 or 3 decades, they have, sociologically speaking, joined the Jewish people. The literature on immigration around the world indicates that the move to another country may trigger a return to religion and religious practices. Accordingly, one of the motivations behind turning to Reform conversion among Russian-speaking immigrants who came to Israel in adulthood is their rising interest in their Jewish identity. In an interview conducted with Lena, a 50-year-old educational psychologist who immigrated to Israel something like 15 years ago and is separated from her husband, she referred to her reasons to convert by saying, "I did the conversion for the soul. I did it only for myself. For me, the conversion is important for being whole. Conversion gives knowledge, history of the Jewish people. Why did I convert? Because I wanted to develop, to know more. Conversion is a soul work. What you think and feel you share with others around you." Her spiritual motivation for undergoing conversion is clearly demonstrated by her use of an expression implying spiritual growth and more about... She perceives conversion to be less about acquiring knowledge on Jewish history and more about being a spiritual learning process. Lena's words confirm Skortovskia's study findings since, like Lena, the Russian-speaking women who had undergone Reform conversion and were interviewed by her mentioned they preferred a conversion that is based on an intelligent person's ability to read ancient texts and draw spiritual lessons from them. For Lena, not only did the conclusion of the Reform conversion process mark her final integration into the Israeli society, but a religious transformation. Here you can see one couple of Filipino convert and her husband. Philippines-born women encounter many obstacles when attempting to get accepted to Orthodox conversion process because the establishment feels that as former foreign workers, they are merely using conversion studies to significantly shorten the waiting period required before they are eligible for Israeli citizenship. Some converts turn into congregation members, into Reform congregation members who frequently pray, also in due to the deep connection of religion that was rooted in them since childhood. Rina, you can see her in the picture. Rina, in her 40s, a housekeeper, recalls that she was raised as Christian and regularly frequented church. Today she says, "I come to Beit Daniel because I want to pray. I come from a spiritual need." The women mentioned their growing identification with Judaism and emphasizes that despite the fact that their formal conversion process has ended, they are still undergoing religious change. Rina say, I am in a process, I'm learning, and I'm happy to learn more. But the marginal social status of Filipino converts, being former foreign workers of Asian descent who underwent conversion in a non-Orthodox alternative reform course, has led to a fuzzy, elusive, and hard-to-define identity. The temporary status of converts has turned, in the case of the Filipino women, into a fixed one, and no change is expected in the foreseeable future. I learned about it from comments made by several old-time congregation members who still refer to the converts as Filipino women whose number is growing in Beit Daniel. Most of the Filipino women's partners grew up in Orthodox religious families. If you remember Moshe in this picture, his family was a traditional Yemenite one. He married Rina, the Filipino woman I quoted before, and he told me, I came from the tradition. I received an Orthodox education. There was a phase that for many years I didn't go to synagogue. It was easy to move closer here in Beit Daniel to the tradition because Beit Daniel enabled me to study, to get to know another side of Judaism, to feel a greater sense of belonging. The synagogue allowed me to draw nearer to Judaism and feel more Jewish. Moshe emphasized, his family name is Chizmi, Moshe emphasized that the open and welcoming atmosphere of the Reform Conversion course allowed spouses to get closer to Judaism once more at their own pace. During the course, the couples meet each other and immediately see the similarities of their situation. Namely, that they are all coping with the intolerant reaction of the Israeli society to their intermarriage between them being Jewish and the women who were former foreign workers and are of different race and religion. This is attested by the following quoted by Hanoch. You can see him in the picture. Hanoch is an all-time member of Beit Daniel congregation and the head of the prayer committee, whose wife is Filipino. And Hanoch said, we became friends since all the men are Jews and the women came for a conversion course. The men became closer to Jewish religion through Beit Daniel, and now we came to Beit Daniel because it is our synagogue. Hanoch's words indicate that the close relationship formed between the couples during the conversion studies helped to turn them from consumers of conversion services into involved congregation members. By involved congregation members, I mean that Chizmi, for an example, Moshe Chizmi, he is the regular Torah reader during Shabbat morning prayers, regular among some others members of the congregation. In addition, his wife and her friends sing songs in their mother tongue from time to time during the Friday night services, and they participate in various volunteer projects in the congregation. Summary. Although Reform Conversion is not recognized by the Chief Rabbinate of Israel, it allows converts to be registered as Jews at the Ministry of the Interior and provides certain, if limited, recognition of for such individuals as Jews by the state. It also means that the individuals are recognized by Jews as Jews by an institutional Jewish denomination, namely the Reform Judaism, and this signaling to societies that they have tried to become part of the national collective by using the only available conversion path open to them. I have discovered that all the converts displayed the behavior patterns mentioned in the current literature on conversion in Israel and had undergone conversion by means of integrating into Jewish Israeli society. I also found out that some converts, particularly those born in the former Soviet Union, had a spiritual interest in Judaism and a desire to learn more about it. which culminated in their conversion. While the Russian-speaking women can pass for Jewish Israeli after converting because they can fix what needs to be fixed in order to be considered fully fledged Jews, despite having a non-Jewish mother. This is not the case for the Filipino women. By contrast, the dual marginality of the Filipino converts, their formal status as foreign workers and from a non-Western race, resulted in their fixed liminal identity of Filipino converts. Yet, it is precisely this dual marginality of Filipino converts together with their circle of friends, which consist of mixed couples of Israeli husband and Filipino wives, which motivates them to join the congregation and helps them gain a sense of belonging to the Israeli society. This phenomenon is in essence an alliance of marginalized groups based on overlapping interests, namely, with the help of a Jewish denomination, which is still nowadays being treated as marginal, as the other in the Israeli Jewish society, the converts, who are themselves considered to be socially marginalized, carve their own unique place in Israeli society. In addition, due to their wives' marginality, which forced them to take an alternative path to conversion, Filipino converts' husbands find ways to deepen their connection with Judaism. Most of the converts treat Beit Daniel as a service provider. A minority of them became regular congregation members. One can carefully say that the individual Beit Daniel convert's decision to keep attending it regularly stems from the scope of social connection she has made in the congregation. While most of the converts treat Beit Daniel as a service provider, a minority of them became regular congregation members, as we saw in the case of the Filipino women and their husbands. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll have the question period at the end after the response. Our next speaker is Miriam Luking, whom we've had fortunate to have with us is here at the Center that studied conversion. She's a postdoc in Asian Studies at Hebrew University, but belonging to the center. Miriam is an anthropologist working on mobilities and globalization, intercultural encounters, religion, in particular Islam and politics, and has developed a special interest in the relationship between Indonesia and the Middle East. Her work is informed by long-term stays in Indonesia, Morocco, and Syria, and by academic education in social and cultural anthropology, Southeast Asian studies, and Middle Eastern studies. And in the course of her fellowship here in Israel, she's researching tourism from Indonesia to Israel and to the Palestinian territories. The topic of her talk will be contemporary journeys of conversion from Indonesia to Israel.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you just said, I'm researching about pilgrimages from Indonesia to Israel and the Palestinian territories. And when people hear about that, most Israelis are very surprised. They say, why of all places you come to Israel to study about Indonesia? We have no diplomatic relationships with Indonesia. Indonesia doesn't recognize Israel as a state. It's the country that is home to the largest Muslim population in the world. So can they even come here? So it comes as a surprise to most Israelis that in fact there are a lot of Indonesians traveling to Israel, about 30,000 per year. Even though this is like only 1% in the total arrival of tourists in Israel, in guided package tourism, they are the number 5. So in this particular type of guided pilgrimage tours, they are quite important. And when you talk to people working in tourism in Jerusalem, everybody is, can you teach us Bahasa Indonesia? We need more Indonesian-speaking guides. So it's something that is growing, that is relevant for tourism in Israel. And also in Indonesia, there are travel agencies popping out of the ground everywhere. And that's also how I got interested in the topic. I worked before on Mecca pilgrimages and the booming tourism to the holy sites in Mecca and Medina, and then I realized that there seems to be kind of a flow-on effect as the Christian neighbors also want to do something, a prestigious pilgrimage. So you see here in these two advertisements that there are Christian as well as Muslim pilgrimages. The Christian ones usually called Holy Land tours, and they start in Egypt, visit the pyramids, and then come from the south, from the Eilat border crossing, go to Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and then up to the Galilee. And then they usually exit Israel through Jordan, visit Petra, and fly back home to Indonesia. And then the Muslim tours are advertised as tours to Palestine, not to Israel. In most of their advertisements you will not find the word Israel, only, like, not at all. And they also go to Egypt and Jordan and spend only 3 days in Israel, where they spend most of their time in Al-Aqsa, and then also visit Hebron and Jericho, and sometimes other tombs of Muslim saints like the Nabi Musa Mosque. That's the context. And then when I applied for this postdoc fellowship, I knew that conversion and interreligious encounters are relevant. Concerning the question about religious mobilities, I was very interested in how the physical mobility, the physical movement is related to changing religious lifestyles, because I saw that for some people, I saw that already in the Muslim pilgrimages, that to make a pilgrimage is a statement, and it's often part of a longer journey of conversion or finding one's religious identity. And until 2 weeks ago, I intended to talk more about inner Christian conversion here, and to study all of this in the context of Muslim-Christian relationships in Indonesia. But, and I have to apologize to Clara that I changed my talk a bit from the paper that I sent you. 2 weeks ago, one of the guides from Jerusalem called me and said, Miriam, you have to come to Jerusalem because I have a Jewish group from Indonesia. So Judaism emerged more and more into the picture a while ago, but it was only 2 weeks ago that I met a group that considers itself being Jewish. So I will mostly talk about these two topics of religious mobility. I'll not talk about conversion to and from Islam, because this is like a whole other topic, and due to a lack of time I will skip that for today. Before I give you some background on the religious landscape in Indonesia, just to give you an idea, an example of how Judaism emerged into the picture, because I'm very excited by it and I think it's interesting for this audience. This Menorah Tour and Travel is one of the largest travel agencies in Indonesia, and this is not the only travel agency that uses Jewish and Israeli symbols, like the Menorah, or travel agencies called Sharon Travel or King David Tours. This is very common among charismatic Pentecostal evangelist streams of Christianity, and usually the churches also, the travel agency is attached to the church. And this is still like about Christianity, but Jewish symbols are very popular, and I'm interested in the question to what extent these symbols remain symbols that function mostly in the Indonesian context, and what they mean in the Indonesian context, or if this also goes along with changing beliefs, changing practices and rituals. So about the context, here you see another picture of an Indonesian woman in Papua, which is a peripheral region in Indonesia, saying, "I stand with Israel." And what I saw, like from my previous visits to Indonesia also, is that this is a provocation of the Muslim majority of the society that is very much supporting Palestine. That's what Indonesians often tell you with pride, that we are a poor country, we are a developing country, but Palestine, that's something where we actually do charity and we collect funds, as you can see in this picture of two women in a demonstration for Palestine. So in recent years we see that the relations between Muslim and Christian people become more tense, and it has not always been like that. but part of it is also related to the history, and I'll give you, I try to keep it brief, some insight about that. So the different religions in Indonesia, the archipelago in pre-Islamic times until the 14th century was characterized by Hindu and Buddhist influence, and there were like Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms that then began to trade with Arab traders. And through trade from Arab countries and then later also from India, Islam came into the region, and it mostly spread in the coastal regions. And that's where, until today, people speak of Islam Arab as the Islam of the coastal regions that was influenced by the Arab traders from the Arabian Peninsula. And then later in the 16th, 17th century, there came Sufi missionaries, mystics from India and Persia who went into the island of Java, where they spread another form of Islam that was more syncretic and got mixed with the Hindu-Buddhist heritage. So there is, even in the history of Islam in Indonesia, there is a differentiation between Islam Arab and what is called Islam Java, like Javanese syncretic Islam, even though today Islam Arab also means something else, as I will tell you later. And then Christianity came during colonial times to Indonesia. Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch, and also there was Portuguese presence in the context of the spice trade. And you see on this map that, I mean, the densely populated island of Java, which is like the center of political and economic power, and also large parts of Sumatra, everything that is green, is Muslim. And the Christian regions are the regions that were perceived as the so-called hinterland, like the jungle, the highlands, the areas that were hard to, that were difficult to access. And I mean, the reason for that was obviously that when people came from the Netherlands and from Portugal, they found a population that was already Islamized, and where the Muslim tradition was very strong and people were very fond of it. So the only people left to be Christianized were the indigenous people. So until today there is a combination of religious affiliation and ethnicity, and the Christian people are